Elgato's Camera Hub software, which is the main software for the Elgato Prompter, just got a software update, version 1.9, which is pretty much the biggest update in terms of new features since the prompter's release. So I wanted to keep you up to date on the update. The update does include some cool features for the Facecam Pro if you have that, including face tracking and all kinds of stuff like that. I don't have the Facecam Pro, so I can't tell you about that. I want to focus on the prompter. So let's look at some of the new features. I'll explain them, and then afterwards I'll kind of talk about the prompter software in general and sort of some of my thoughts on that. So the new update includes multiple scripts, automatic chapters, chapter drag and drop, easily splitting chapters, looping your script, voice dictation, which is not the same as voice tracking. Talk about that. Resizing text in the editor, Crosshair Overlay, which is pretty awesome, turning the prompter on and off, and adjustable contrast, along with an open dyslexic font and some improvements to Twitch chat, along with general bug fixes and things because it's a software update. So as you can see here, I do have version 1.9 installed on my computer, and here is the prompter area. We'll just go down this whole left column and talk about what the changes are. Right here up at the top, a big one is this power button. This turns off the prompter, kind of. If I click that, you'll see the prompter screen turns off, but I don't know if you can see on my second camera over here. I can tell that the display is still on. It's not actually powered off, and if I click the on button, the prompter turns back on and I can see everything. What this power button does is turns the prompter off as a display. So it removes it as a display from your computer setup. It doesn't actually fully power down the prompter. But the benefit to that doesn't really matter in a setup like mine where I have a screen and the prompter. But my wife's office, for example, she has two external displays and the prompter in the middle. So when she's using the prompter as a display and she wants to drag something from one screen to the other, she kind of has to go up through the prompter and then over to the other display. And if she's not using the prompter, being able to just turn it off so she can go back and forth between her two main displays like normal is really helpful. So that's what that's there for. We've got our brightness control, just like always. On Windows, you should now see a contrast control, but that's not available on Mac OS. But if you want to adjust the contrast, which Elgato said also kind of plays with the colors a little bit, that's there. But now going down here into the content tab, this is where I am content with what they've done to update it, because now you can do multiple scripts. Up until now, you can only have one script, but now you can go between scripts, you can add them, change them. That versatility right there is awesome. Just being able to store and work on and format different scripts into the prompter. Up until now, I've been writing my scripts in the Notes app and then pasting them into the Prompter app, which is a little bit clunky. And then you do have a lot of stuff with chapters. This example script I have right here is just one big chapter. But if I wanted to add another chapter, sort of down here, I can then drag and drop and move my chapters around. So you have a lot more control over chapters. And even just for me, as I look at the script, I can now change the size of the editor. This does not affect what shows on the prompter. I think on the side camera over here, you can see I'm changing the size of the text in the script editor, but it's not affecting the actual prompter itself. So that's just for your editing. And, you know, if you're getting old and your eyes aren't as good anymore and you need bigger letters, you can do that there, which is really cool. Now, like I said, there is also a voice dictation option. So to enable some of these, especially on Mac OS at least, you're gonna have to go into your system preferences and give Camera Hub permission to do these things, which it will prompt you to do. But if you notice something's not working, that's probably why it doesn't have permission. And down here, you can see the little microphone for dictation. What this does is it does not voice control the software. Maybe it's a tease that that's a feature coming in the future, but it just allows you to dictate to the software. So if you're kind of brainstorming or running through notes, instead of having to type everything out, you can just voice dictate to the software and then edit your script that way. Now, unfortunately, I'm not sure if this is user error or not, but I can't get the dictation thing to dictate. The microphone is here. As far as I can tell, all of my permissions are set, but nothing doing. And if I go away and come back, sometimes this has a mute slash through it and sometimes it doesn't. I don't know if I'm supposed to hold down and then it's supposed to dictate or let go. I know I run all kinds of stuff like my Roadcasters and everything through my computer. I don't know how through the Elgato Camera Hub software to tell it which audio source to use for dictation. So I don't know if this is a me issue or a software bug. So I'm interested to know if you have been able to get dictation to work. How did you do that? And does it actually work? In terms of appearance, it doesn't appear that much has changed. However, it seems like there's sort of more fine tuning. So for example, if I want to do the horizontal margin on my script, it almost seems like I have just a little bit more fine tuning to get it the exact size that I want. I usually like having my text a little bit more narrow, so that way it's more directly over the camera lens, and then my eyes don't go back and forth if I happen to be reading something. Down here in scrolling, we have the option to auto scroll chapters or auto loop. So if you have maybe like a shorter script and you just want it to get to the end and then go back to the top so you can do multiple takes, you could do it that way. But the second of the two biggest features in this update, the first one being multiple scripts, is this one right here, which is being able to add an overlay to your prompter display. So what this does is if I click this overlay thing, what you'll see on my actual prompter display is now there's a crosshair right in the middle. And I can change that. It can be a crosshair, it can be a little square with a plus sign in the middle, or it can be a square with a square in the middle, or this is pretty cool, you can actually click the little plus icon and then upload your own image. So if you want your own overlay, you could make like a PNG or something and just put it there. The purpose for this though is to be able to let you know where the camera lens is, because you're looking at the prompter's display, but you might not necessarily be looking directly at the camera's lens. I think the Elgato Prompter is a great size where even if I'm looking to one corner or the other corner, it doesn't really look like I'm not making eye contact with the camera. But for those times that you want to really look right in the camera lens, especially if you're on a video call and you want to look at the other person, you can then put this overlay right here to let you know where your camera's lens is. And this positioning box down here is what will let you move it around. So you can just move it right to where your camera lens is. And you can also change the color of it. So right now I had mine set to red, but I think by default it was blue, and whatever works for you, you can change the color of it. And you can also change the opacity. So if it's like a little too bright and intense, you can turn it down a little bit. This will also show up not just when you're in text mode, but also when you're in display mode. So no matter what mode the prompter is in, whether it's running a script or just acting as a display, you will be able to see your marker right there. So that's my pretty quick overview of the software updates, but there are a few other things I want to touch on. Obviously, it's not perfect. So when it comes to the Elgato Prompter software, something I want to be clear on is it is the best prompter software I've personally ever used, and I've used everything from the free phone apps all the way up to software that's at broadcast television stations. They are all universally terrible. Some are a little better than others, but it's crazy just how bad prompter software is. And so the Elgato Prompter software, I have just found to be so much better than everything else, even though it's just starting out. It's got a ways to go. It definitely, needs some more features, needs some improvements, but it's still, in my experience, the best prompter software out there by a wide margin. I'll put these little margin tabs right here. I'm going to make that really wide because it's the best by a wide margin. Doesn't mean there's not room for improvement though. So a couple weird things I've noticed in this update is, especially when I'm editing text, you can kind of see right here, if I have my cursor down in this third paragraph, but I click up here to edit this, for some reason it snaps the whole thing like up, and I have to scroll up to see when I'm editing. It's weird. It doesn't just let me, I don't know. It's weird. Like editing text is a little weird. And also there's no way to format your text. So I can do chapters and everything, but I can't like do bold or italics or anything like that, where sometimes as I'm reading through an outline or a script, there might be something that I want to have bold, or in my case, I usually do a lot of section titles or chapter titles it might be. And it's kind of nice to know that this part up here isn't something I need to read, but it's just something that is a note to myself. A lot of times, like actual broadcast studios, the prompter software will usually have stuff like the stage directions or the camera name or the talent name in a different color, like yellow, and then the script will be in white. So you kind of know as you're going through what is meant to be read and what is meant to not be read, so you don't say the quiet part loud and pull a Ron Burgundy. We're talking about the display. If you're on Windows, there should be a contrast control. I definitely am excited to see that come to Mac OS, but I'm also still hoping that there is a color temperature slider as well. So that way, if you have another external monitor or a couple external monitors, you can make the prompter's color temperature get at least pretty close to yours, even though it's not supposed to be a color accurate, studio reference monitor. It's kind of nice if it can match a little more directly than it currently does. We talked about the voice dictation feature, and I definitely think that voice tracking is something that probably has to come to the software at some point. It might just be a little tricky to implement, but being able to have it just follow your voice would be awesome. There's some other apps that do that, and it is absolutely helpful. And the crosshair thing is super awesome. I really love this. My only gripe with the crosshair thing, and this is sort of a small one, is if you want to change the color, you can go in here, you can change the color, but it doesn't actually change until you click OK, and then it changes. So it's not a big deal. The reason that's a little bit annoying is if you have your crosshair display up on the screen and you want to try to find a color that doesn't blend in with whatever happens to be on the display, instead of just being able to drag the slider around and see what looks good, you have to find it, click OK, see if it looks good. If not, go back here, click another one, try again. So it's just a little more tedious than it needs to be. And then the other thing that was added, which is kind of a helpful / strange one, and I sure hope you should be able to see this on my second camera. I have this script right here. If I scroll up on this, you might notice that pretty much as soon as text goes past the midway point, it turns dark. Now, this is a helpful thing to let whoever's reading the script know where they're at in the script so they can keep track of it. You basically just read the top bright line of text, and that helps you keep your place. But there's no way to adjust this that I can find. I can't find a way to turn it off or adjust it. It's just sort of all text above the middle becomes dark. And for me, I don't often read word for word scripts. What I usually do is sort of have a chunk like this text right here. I sort of have this chunk up on screen, and I use that as a guide. So I sometimes read from it, and I sometimes kind of go off the cuff and do other things. But now it's sort of weird because half of it is grayed out and half of it is white, and it's sort of confusing to me. I would like this to just all be pure white. I would like the ability to adjust this feature. I think it's a cool addition, but the fact that there's no way to change it or modify or adjust it or even just turn it off is strange. I might be missing something, but I have gone through up, down, left, right, every direction of this software that I could find, and I can't find a way to change that. So hopefully that's something that can be changed. Now, obviously, like I said before, even though I think this is the best prompter software out there, there's clearly still some improvement and some work to do, and Elgato has been very responsive. The fact that the prompter came out not all that long ago at version 1.0, and we're already up to version 1.9 with some really cool features implemented that users have been asking for, shows me that they're at least listening. And so if there's something you want to see in the software or something you're having issues with, I would strongly encourage you to politely and diplomatically reach out and give that feedback to Elgato. Politely, diplomatically, and I think they're really happy to listen to their user base because it's in their best interest to have the best software on the best prompter, and then people are happy and they sell more prompters, right? So let them know what you want to see, let them know what you're having issues with, and then hopefully we can see it in future updates. And speaking of things that I like to see, thank you to everyone who helped support my channel through Patreon and YouTube channel memberships. And if you want to know a little bit more about the Elgato Prompter, you can promptly check out these videos right here.